Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to the Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, I'm driving this 1976 Triumph TR6. I have been indoctrinated to love this car since birth because this is one of those cars where no matter where we were, if we passed a TR6, my dad had to point and shout, "Look, a TR6." I've never been in one. I've never had any interaction with one until today, really, other than car shows where I've gotten to look up close. And it's a beautiful car. The shape, the style, it is quintessential British roadster. And when we get in and drive, I'll show you more of the interior, but this walnut dashboard is just so gorgeous, and it immediately stands out as something that makes you feel like there's some quality behind this thing. They made a lot of these. They made about 90,000 of them. Most of them were exported from the UK. All of the US market cars got carburetors. Why does that matter? Well, because the TR6 PI, petrol injected cars, actually had 150 horsepower, where we in the US market were stuck with the carburetors with only 104 horsepower. So this 2.5 liter straight six only makes 104 horsepower here in the US. It has a 4-speed manual gearbox with an optional overdrive. In this one, it works in 3rd and 4th gear. I think earlier models, they were also functional in 2nd gear. That's operated by this stock right here. So if that's up, the overdrive is off. If you want to turn it on, you pop it in, and there you go. Our little placard down here tells us that it was manufactured in May of '76, very close to the end of the run because they stopped making these in July. And when we open the hood to reveal this exciting little inline six, man, it's nothing huge, but it sits way far back. I mean, I don't know, would you be able to consider this front mid? It is, everything's pretty much tucked in behind that front axle. We've got disc brakes up front, drum brakes in the rear, so the brakes are fine. They're fine. They function. I don't feel frightened because it's a very light vehicle, but my goodness, this thing just sounds phenomenal. It's like driving a little airplane. When they came out in 1969, that's what's kind of unofficially known as the Mark I TR6, and those go for big money. This is actually still a very affordable sports car. It hasn't really caught up to the market yet, so maybe someday this will be a genuine collectible where you say, man, I wish I got that early. The easiest way to identify a Mark I is this shroud right here. It would be body colored. There's a few other changes in the car, but you know what, it gets a little complicated. But if you see a red Triumph and this part is red, you know it's a 1969 model year. It does handle reasonably well, but if you look at how narrow the car is, it is very small, and you're sitting basically right on that frame. You notice it when you're driving it. There's quite a bit of body roll. It's a hoot to drive. In the back, we've got our nice luggage rack, and you can tell that this one's been well cared for just because, you know, when you look at some of these older cars that have really been beat, these connection points just start to wither away. It looks like absolute garbage. Whereas this one, it looks pretty damn good. This is a good driver too. You know, this is the kind of car that you would buy and just use. Enjoy it throughout the summer, take it to a few car shows. Plenty of boot space, not a lot of depth, but you could certainly get a couple of bags in there for a weekend trip away. And it is a damn shame that the US required these impact bumpers at the time. Porsche was plagued by these as well. So it's something we accept, and it's something that I think kind of has its own charm because it's period correct. To fuel it up back here, we've got our filler cap, which is so industrial feeling. It's wonderful. Only thing I always hate about these types of fuel ups is that you've got to get the hose up and over the car because you don't want it to spill all over. But listen to this click. Oh, that's wonderful. The convertible top, super easy to assemble. You just pop it up, clip it into place, and zip up the rear plastic window. And we've got a single rear view mirror over here, adjustable by rotation. So let's take it out for a drive. It's gonna be a beautiful day. We've got our great TR6 keychain, and then the ignition is down here right between your legs. It goes in flat, we'll clutch in, get a good neutral, start her up. Ignore that knocking, that was me just not closing the door all the way. And we do have a seatbelt, which is nice. I still feel like I'll probably get decapitated or killed by it if anything bad happens, but you know what, I don't think the video would be published if that was the case, so you'll never see it. I'm gonna do this whole thing top down, so let's get the earmuffs on. This pedal box is way over to the left, completely opposite of all the Ferraris I've ever driven where they're way over to the right. So you've got to kind of do this weird pedal dance way over here. first things you notice when you get in the TR6 is the driving position. Like I said, you're kind of sat up on that frame rail, so you are elevated on in the car quite a bit. It'd be nice to be a little bit lower, but that's fine. The next thing is because the keys are right between your legs, having a keychain is maybe not the best idea because you're gonna feel it sitting there right between your legs while you're driving. So there's fourth gear. I'm gonna lift a little bit and put it into overdrive. There it is, a little bit of a ka-thunk, and in we go. Really nice. You're not supposed to engage overdrive at or above 4,000 RPM. That's kind of the rule of thumb around here, but we can turn it back off and we'll give it a little bit of gas to meet the revs. There it is. I can't fully understand why the British Roadster was a thing. I mean, when I think of England, I think of dreary, rainy, not very exciting weather. Maybe they're just optimists. Maybe they just are hopeful. It's even taken me a few days to find the right weather to take this one out. And I'm in New England in the summer. It's been very rainy, been very wet. Let's take our time through the golf course. Oh yes. Man, I don't know if you could fit a set of clubs in the back of this, but if I were a golfer, I would certainly try. I would just not even take the bag. I'd just take my clubs, find a reason to drive it. Kind of a silent killer too. It's not very loud. This is what I like about sports cars. It's not about outright speed. It's not about saying I did, you know, double, triple, quadruple the speed limit on this road. It's just about enjoying it, and I'm finding myself really enjoying this car. That was double yellows. Thank God we're in a narrow car. Something tells me a small overlap head-on collision in a TR6 is not going to go well for me. I just love the gearing in this thing. I mean, it's really geared for just a little country blast. Third gear is perfect. I've got all that juicy torque up around 3,000 RPM. I can just feed that throttle when I need it. What a good time. Third and fourth feel very in line. You know, it's an intuitive rev match and you're in, no problem. Second to third, there's a bigger gap between second and third. So when you want to go for that 3-2 downshift, you got to give it a real bootful. See that? The brakes do feel a bit 1970s. They're positive. There's not a whole lot of feedback from the pedal. You just push and push and push harder. But, you know, they're 1970s brakes. They work. And I'm not sure that I would feel that comfortable having a whole bunch more power in this thing because, you know, brakes are really what allow you to go fast. What could be better? Top down Triumph weather. This is the vibe. These seats are quite unsupportive. They work, they certainly do their job, but I tell you, every time you put it into a corner, even a mild corner, you're gonna have to do a little bit of work. I hope you got back muzzles and some abs because you're gonna have to prop yourself up, which is fine. It's all part of the fun. You will notice a little delay in the tachometer. You know, you get on it and you can hear it winding out and then the tach kind of catches up to it, which I think is very funny. Very British. very Lucas Electronics, I'm sure. I guess it's a Smith's tack, but you know, who's the backbone in here? I think Lucas is the true electric backbone in the TR6. The steering in this car is just delicious. It's very precise, it's very tactile, you can tell what's going on. You get that old British Roadster vibe for certain. It's just so fun to play with. But it's also not a hardcore, it doesn't want you to go 10/10ths. I don't know that it would take me some time to really feel comfortable bringing this out in a corner. It is just a joy to drive around the street though. I can see this being like the perfect weekender to go down to the shops or to have at a vacation home. You know, I would love to drive this up in New Hampshire or down the Cape, or, you know, if you're so fortunate, Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard. But man, the drivability is just out of this world. It's so much more than I anticipated. I did not expect for this to be so easy and accessible to get into and drive. I always expected this to be a little bit of a tricky vehicle. Instead, what I'm finding is just the ease of use is wild. In a movie, this has got to be the good guy's car, for sure. It's great for navigating narrow roads. We're not on a narrow road, but the occasional cyclist pinches me over. I'm not worried. I got all the room in the world. So I don't think there's any real shock or surprise here with the TR6. It handles the way it looks, and it's wonderful. It's exactly what I was hoping for. I'm not disappointed driving it. It's a little challenging. You know, to drive real fast, it would be a little challenging, but I think for its purpose, for being a great vintage roadster that can kind of just get around town, do some highway jaunts. I mean, you could certainly bring this up north to Vermont, New Hampshire if you're in New England. Jump on 89 and have no problem just cranking along in this thing. And maybe you're on probation. Maybe you're somebody who just can't afford a ticket. Well, the TR6 is probably the right car for you because it's low power, 100 horsepower, 4-speed, very close ratio gearbox. Pretty much going to keep you out of trouble while you have fun. So there you go. If you're looking for like an autocross machine, this is not where you're going to find it. You know, get yourself a Miata. Modern sports cars like a Miata function a heck of a lot better than these vintage cars. But if you want like vintage motoring vibes, top down, just you in the car, very raw, great drivability, old school charm, lots of thumbs up from passers-by, this thing works. This thing really works. So thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thanks to the Bond Group for offering up a chance to drive a car that I've always wanted to drive. This has been on my list for a long time. I just never knew anybody with a TR6. See them all over the place, but I've never met an owner. Special thanks to the Patreon supporters for making this channel and the podcast possible. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. We'll do a very short highway jaunt and then onto some back roads where it belongs. Luckily, this has so much low-end grunt. Getting around town is really easy. The high end of the motor, you know, it doesn't feel like there's much point to breadlining it, to be honest with you, just unless you just need to hear it. But all that poke is down low and in the middle. It's wonderful. There's fourth gear. And a very, 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 very slow Mazda. Dude, come on, man. I can't believe they give people driver's licenses around here. Blows my mind.